Every company is going to be a technology company. We've heard this said before. And of course, we see the big tech companies that are really focused on the revenue they make from technology. But what about the more traditional companies like a general contractor or construction firm? Well, today we get the chance to talk to Mark Stocks. He's the Vice President and Director of Enterprise Architecture at J.E. Dunn Construction. J.E. Dunn is celebrating 100 years as a construction firm, as a company this year. And he is really focused on how the buildup of the last few years of their clean data, their focus on making sure their data is really, really, really good, is preparing them for a future of growth and opportunity. They've got what they call their big three: AI/ML, citizen development, and a new project management approach. And it's a really good case study in how thinking about your data ultimately leads to thinking about your users, ultimately leads to thinking about your tools that then allows you to think about how technology, user experience, artificial intelligence, machine learning is going to serve your company as you grow. You're not going to want to miss out on this conversation, so let's jump right in. Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to hand it right to you. Why don't you tell the people, the audience, a little bit about who you are and what you do every day?
Mark Stocks. I am the Director of Enterprise Architecture with J. Dunn. I've been with J. Dunn for about 18 years. Actually started off as a developer. And as I started building applications, I started stepping back and architecting them more. And we have a group now of 4 people at Dunn, and we've kind of evolved over the past couple of years. And so primarily our focus is anything technology focused at J. Dunn. We're connecting the dots. We're building the puzzle in the technology space. We specifically handle the low-code citizen development area, data, which includes AI and ML, and then any applications that are intersecting with our ERP.
Okay, so let's take a step back a little bit. Tell me more a little bit. So for the folks that don't know who JE does, anybody in your industry definitely does, but for those outside of your industry, who is JE Dunn? What are you famous for? And what's the focus of the firm?
So we are a general contractor in the United States. We've got about 26 offices throughout the U.S. We're a little over $6 billion in revenue right now, and we have almost 4,500 employees. When I started there 18 years ago, we had less than 1,000 employees nationwide. We're a big general contractor. We do a lot of mixed use data centers, hospitals, pretty much anything except for residential. We don't do a lot of residential or infrastructure.
Awesome. That's super helpful context, because at that size, you're going to have different constraints, different challenges, different opportunities than maybe somebody else would in the size of firm they're working in. Okay, so we talked a little bit before recording. I know this is a year of really getting focused. You're going through some pretty explosive growth, some really exciting growth, but that means you really have to be focused on what can you actually get done inside your team, inside your group. Tell me a little bit more about this big 3 that you're working on.
Yeah, so we had a leadership offsite meeting last year, at the end of last year. And we all kind of brought things to the table of what should our strategy be for an IT organization. And so, little side note, our company is actually turning 100 years this year. And so because it's turning 100 years, we wanted to really emphasize the transformation that our company has gone through in the past 100 years. And so we created this theme, IT transformation. Within the IT transformation, we had 3 pillars. We have citizen development, which is the low-code, no-code solutions that enables our end users to actually build applications that are going to help facilitate business processes. AI and ML, because we think that AI and ML is going to increase business efficiencies. And also with ML, answer the questions that we need asked. And then the third piece is we're replacing our project management system with Autodesk. So we have a internal system that is directly connected to our ERP, and we're replacing that with the Autodesk essentially platform. We're already a big Autodesk user, and so we typically use it from pre-construction all the way up to design. And so now we're kind of switching that and going into construction, so that all the phases of the life cycle of the project will be in Autodesk. So that brings its own challenges because there's integrations, there's other things that we've got to take into account on how do we get that data out of Autodesk, put it into our data lake for machine learning and AI, and then how do we get that data into our ERP so we can have standardized reporting and kick off other business processes. So those are our three strategies for the year: project management, AI and ML, and then citizen development.
So let's start on the citizen development. I want to understand that a little bit more. So low code, no code has definitely been having a surgence across the industry as a whole. Where are you seeing value of that low code, no code? And when you say the end user, who's taking advantage of that? Who's actually getting their hands dirty and picking it up and using it?
So it's interesting. Citizen development's been around forever, and it was essentially Excel or Access back in the day. And now we've gotten this new data model with the Microsoft Power Platform ecosystem. And so we launched the product within the company, and very quickly we started seeing people kind of building little small Power Apps, little workflow solutions. I get an email from a trade partner that's got 3 attachments, and those 3 attachments have to be saved in 3 different places. And so they write a Power App to kind of facilitate that process. Last year, we had a superintendent build an app for daily journals. A daily journal is when you're on a job site and you need to record everything that happened that day, who visited that day, how many units, how many people were on site, how many hours worked, what was the weather like, was there anything that caused the job site to shut down, anything like that. So they record that every single day. And we had a superintendent build a Power App that was logging daily journals, but it was actually using APIs for Autodesk because he didn't like the way the Autodesk interface looked. So he built his own daily journal app for him to use. But at the end of the day, we validated the data was going back to a single location, which was our primary source location. So we were all good with what he built. He just kind of facilitated that entry process. And then we also had another app that ended up going viral in the company. A single office in Des Moines created a resource allocation app for our estimators for new opportunities that are coming into the system. Typically, we do resource planning, but we don't resource plan estimators. We resource plan the superintendents, the project managers, the senior PMs, the guys that are physically putting in the work at the project. But the estimators are before construction starts. And so our estimating department, a couple of guys got together, found the Power App, built a resource planning tool, and they specifically just wanted it for their office. Their office was a small office. They had 5 estimators. They just wanted to know where they were on which opportunities that they were taking. This estimator showed it at a roundtable last year, and everybody loved it, and everybody bought in, and everyone started using it. And so the reports started getting better and better. The usage increased to the point that IT kind of came in and revamped some of the back end logic so that the opportunities and the projects were mapped to our standard entities so that we could even get better reporting out of it. So those are a couple of examples of apps that we have right now. But it's all over the board. I mean, it's everything from internal departments have little small apps to apps that are actually facilitating business processes to apps that are managing security on projects. Pretty much you name it, we're either looking at building it and or thinking about building it.
Now, traditionally, before this kind of, low code, no code has been around for a long time, but before this, you would have had to basically say somebody comes to you with this idea, then you have to resource it into the IT department, figure out who the engineers that are going to be that are going to build this out, et cetera, et cetera. What is the barrier to entry to getting into that now? Do you still have to do some level of training with these folks, or are they just picking it up and they're kind of wrapping their heads around it, or they're, getting their hands dirty and they're saying, hey, no fear, I'm going to go for it? What's it like to get people familiar enough with the tool set to go, oh, here's how I could leverage it?
Yeah, the that fear is a good word because it does take a certain individual that has that they don't have a fear of taking on new tasks, new challenges. It does take a unique individual, but we're starting to notice that unique individual, it's not somebody that you can pinpoint. It's not a young person, because
Yeah.
the Daily Journal app was not built by a young person. It is it's all over the board, and it just takes someone that's challenged at work that wants to make the business process or the work experience a little bit better with an automated task. So it's better to find those users that are at the project sites that are actually doing the work, because they know the pains and struggles that they're going through every single day, and they have a better idea of how to solve that. I mean, typically you would have that idea and it would go to a project manager, and then we would prioritize this project, and then it would get to IT, and then you would have to have a developer build an API, build an actual app. You'd have to get the data team involved to build out reporting and all of this. And by that time, you've kind of separated yourself from the actual business logic. And now it's just, step one, step two, step three, which there's nothing wrong with that. There are projects that we have to do that way. But the citizen development model speeds up that life cycle, because the person actually doing the work and the person owning the product is the person that's solving the problem to begin with. And so they're a little more buy-in, and the biggest win that we're seeing with all of this is the time to fail on a project, because development groups will build 10 or maybe 10 or 15 projects a year. Maybe 5 of them are just slam dunks and everybody loves them and you're using them and they're providing value, but there's always a handful of projects that just don't quite make the mark, or they something got lost in translation and they get missed. With citizen development, we're still going to have those scenarios. We're still going to have apps that don't quite get robust, don't quite get accepted, or they don't go viral within the company. But we're not out IT hours, we're not out development hours, and we're not out infrastructure and or resources. So when an app does go viral, we can take it over because we already know that there's buy-in within the company, that there's users that are using the app, there's reports that are getting generated from the app, and people are already finding value on the app.
So are you able to then take that? Let's say you do get some traction. They've built this particular tool at that one particular office. It's working really great. People are excited about it. Then does your team or another team get to say, hey, how can we help take this to the rest of the company or to the other offices? Or does that happen organically as well?
Yeah, that actually happened organically with this app. Our team, we kind of just connected the dots behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We left the app look exactly how it looked, because we wanted the end users to be we didn't want to make any dramatic changes. But when you go and type in a project or you type in a user, those are now using our standard project and user entities. And so for reporting standpoint, we can now blend this data set with any other reports downstream to make it a more powerful app.
That's awesome. Okay. Okay. So I want to shift gears because I think we could probably nerd out on just that alone for the next like 2 hours. But I want to shift gears to the AI ML world. Obviously, it's what everybody's talking about for the last few years. And although it's been around much longer than that, tell me about where you're seeing practical use cases of AI and ML. Because I'll be honest, a lot of the conversations we see across our peers, across our clients, across other guests is, yeah, we're all talking about it. It's fun, it's cool, it's novel, but practicality is hard to find. So tell me a little bit more around where's the plane landing on your AI ML use cases?
So we're taking a very unique approach with AI and ML. We started a committee. We actually had our kickoff meeting last week. We got buy-in from leadership, so we had our leadership team create a AI charter that went down to ethical decisions, ethical reasons with AI, um, essentially keeping the company's best interests in mind when thinking about AI and ML. So we had the charter created, we had it signed off by leadership. Leadership identified 40 people. So we're going to have 20 people in the AI group and 20 people in an ML group. The two groups are essentially going to be tasked with creating ideas and or use cases for AI and ML. And then those ideas are going to be brought back to the committee for prioritization, and then we're gonna move forward with it. We have already we are a CoPilot company, so we launched CoPilot last year, and we launched that to about 500 users. And so CoPilot is just Microsoft's version of ChatGPT.
Right.
The biggest win that we have seen just right out of the gate is that you can summarize meetings with Copilot, and it does a really, really good job. We use Copilot to summarize owner meetings now. We're using it to summarize other internal meetings. It does action items, bullet points, summaries. That's one of the biggest and quickest use cases we've seen with AI. We're also seeing AI in the citizen development world, because you can go into a forum, you can say, "Hey, I want to build a invoice tracking solution," and as you start typing the questions, the app essentially gets built, and
Right.
then you can start redefining it, saying, "Oh, I need my invoice code to be a number, not numbers and letters." You can start getting down to the granular details, and the AI engine will essentially rebuild your app as you're talking to it. The ML strategy is a little bit different, because we are really focused on operations, on how do we improve operations and how do we make operations safer. So we
Mm.
are trying to use ML to essentially predict safety accidents, and also predict when we might have fee erosion on a project. So fee erosion is the concept of, we're going to lose money on this project, or the money that we would have gained on this project is going to be reduced because of a certain incident, something happened. Maybe there was a change order that we didn't take account for, schedule slippage, or there could be anything. But using our data to identify fee erosion and or fee enhancement, and then also the safety component. Um, that one's a little less concrete, because we're actively working on that, and we're actively engaged with that one. But we are our data strategy is the thing with data is that you've got to have a great foundation. You got to have your data clean. You've got to have great taxonomy. You got to have classification of your data, and all of that takes time. But if you do it right, the ability to build data models on top of that is significantly reduced. You can jump headfirst into ML, but you got to get your house in order. And so that's what we've been working on for the past probably 3 or 4 years, is really getting our data strategy intact. And then Microsoft launched a product called Fabric, which Fabric
Mhm.
is just an ecosystem of multiple tiers of different data solutions, and they just branded it as Fabric. And so we've been using the One Lake methodology, or we've been using One Lake and been using the medallion methodology for getting our data into the bronze, silver, gold tiers. So we are heavy down that road. So hopefully by next year we will have multiple ML data models running that will be answering questions for our company that maybe our end users didn't even know to ask.
Yeah, and I think that's something, when the conversations that we've been having in the AI ML space is just that, is yeah, that's a great idea. This is a great use case. is your data ready for it? And like you said, you've invested multiple years in trying to get the data ready for it, right? And then there's still the, okay, now how do we train it? How do we tune it? How do we,
Hmm.
and everything else that comes from that. Well, luckily, the tools are getting more efficient, faster, and even it's kind of come full circle. You're building some of the data centers that are going to be probably computing some of this, right? So
Yeah.
it's neat to see how you can actually put it back into real world use case. Again, we could probably nerd out on ML for a while, but I think that's really a practical place. Especially, I love you're talking about the safety around how you make sure that you're looking for ways for improvement, because ultimately, again, a lot of what we're hearing about is novelty, not actual practical use case. And so I'm excited to see where there's practical use case on
Yeah,
this stuff.
one of the things that we found that was really really shocking, and this was one of those things that like all the pieces just kind of fell together and we didn't even realize. But a few years ago we did this project called cold storage. So essentially, anytime we had a data record that was approved or submitted in our ERP, it created a PDF. And so we structured the PDF in a very specific way, and we took that PDF and we um, put it through a cold storage, and we stored it on a project website. And we organized it by submittals, RFIs, issues, drawings. So all of the document types were all organized correctly. They were all organized by individual projects, and it's just PDFs. The thing that we didn't we came to realize was that the PDFs were getting scanned by our SharePoint, Microsoft, behind the scenes, and those PDFs, because of the taxonomy in the PDFs and the structure of how we were loading them, you could go to CoPilot and you could say, was there any submittal on an individual project that had fire protection issues, or any submittals that caused leaks on a project, or anything like that? And it would search all of the projects that you had access to, because security and governance is a huge thing with us.
Right.
It would find that PDF. It would highlight the text in the PDF. It would answer your question with that snippet of text, but then it would also give you the link to the attachment that it found from that PDF. So it would link you back to that project website, to that directory, that folder, and that PDF for that one submittal. That was that was an unbelievable find, and it really just solidified. I mean, the user could have found that through search,
Sure.
but the ability to ask that natural language question, to get the response back from the Copilot, and he even refined his question, because once he got a response back, he said, "No, that's an RFI. I'm actually looking for submittals on this individual project." And then Copilot responded again, like, "Yes, here you go. Here's one submittal I found." So to build the ability to have that natural language conversation with a chat is phenomenal. The other win that we found with Copilot is that you can create your own custom events within Copilot. So you could ask it, let's say it's an HR related question. And this is like an example that almost any company could use. But if it's an HR related question, what's my 401k benefits? What dental insurance do we use? All the generic questions that every HR department probably gets from all of their users. We found that you can create topics. So like, how many vacation days do I have left? Well, there is a report for that. We built a report. You got to go find that report. But within Copilot, you can say, "Hey, how many vacation days do I have left?" And because Copilot knows who you are, and we've tagged that topic as vacation days, we're able to execute an API that is already used for that same report, calculate the amount of vacation days you have left, and actually answer the user in chat, and then provide them a link with the report so they can go look at the report in more detail. So that concept right there really takes our applications to a whole other level when they can be surfaced through a Copilot chat.
I mean, it's really the thing that I get excited about is how much it'll change user experience, right? How much it's going to change the world of how we interact with the interface. Because previously they would have either had to known how to do a query and the right kind of query to find the search, then filter it down, et cetera. Or they would have had to know the taxonomy of your
Hmm.
database and go through and say, hey, which folder is that in? Where can I get to that? And which directory, et cetera. And now using this natural language processing and or this prompting, it makes it so much easier. Now, there is still a little bit of training there, right? So, how
Yeah.
do you best prompt it, right? How do you get the results? So you talked about the individual having to say, "No, that's not exactly what I wanted," and not walking away going, either I got the wrong information or I didn't get what I wanted, so it didn't do it. It's not capable of doing it. It's like, no, 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 no. Just keep talking to it,
Yeah.
and I think that's fascinating. There's so, and it. I mean, what we're early days, really, of where this is
Hmm.
going to go, which is really exciting.
Yeah. The AI is, I mean, it's the topic of every conference, every session. I mean, everyone's talking about it. I think there's a few companies that are really attacking it head first. Some companies have completely turned off ChatGPT in their whole company, and you can't even use it if you're on one of their local devices. Uh, I think we've decided to lean into it,
Yep.
but there's also, I mean, there's ethical questions. Like you shouldn't
Yeah.
be asking CoPilot to read a contract. There's things that you shouldn't ask it to do, but there's other things that it can get you started. Like it could help you write that email, it could help you create that PowerPoint presentation. And so, the 30 minutes of you sitting there with a blank page, starting that email, as opposed to, oh, I can edit something because I already have a base to go off of. And then sentiment is the other thing, is that now you can start putting more sentiment into messages saying, this sounds too formal. Make this sound more like me. Make this sound more informal. Put a humorous spin on it. And then the ability to analyze sentiment. So
Yeah.
in owner meetings, can we analyze the sentiment of the owner? Are they happy? Are they content? Are they getting frustrated along the way of the project? And then once we can start analyzing stuff like that, we can start trending it to say, okay,
Hmm.
when was the moment that this owner started going, like his perception of the project started changing. And so how do we proactively attack that and switch it up, change up the mindset to say, hey, what can we do better right now to get that project back on its feet?
It allows you to analyze the user journey live, basically,
Yeah.
which is something that again is people have tried to do this. We shared space with a company that was doing sentiment analysis 15 years ago, but it was kind of basic, right? And so that now to see how fast it can get to that, and and it will only get better, right? There are times where I go, you're making a sentiment judgment, and that's not actually true, right? You don't see the full picture, you don't exactly understand the context. But I think again, with multimodal and a bunch of things that are coming now, we're only going to get better. Let's take a break to tell you about our sponsor this week, Crema, a design and technology consultancy. At Crema, we know that navigating through periods of rapid change and scaling can be daunting. Broken systems, misaligned teams, delivery delays, and gaps in customer engagement are just some of the challenges that can arise when growing like this. That's where Crema steps in. Crema acts as a trusted partner, helping you overcome these hurdles on your journey to becoming a tech-enabled organization. Crema is excited to announce 3 new services designed to empower your product teams. You may have heard of the product triangle: design, product, and technology. Well, we're excited to help you navigate all 3. First is our UX audit. This isn't just a review, it's a deep dive into the user experience to uncover transformative insights that serve as a blueprint for greater success. Next is our team assessment. This service helps you identify the strengths and gaps in your product team, arming you with the knowledge to excel. And finally, a code quality assessment. It's essential to ensure that your technology is not just working, but thriving. Our experts will enhance your code base to improve performance, security, and scalability. Ready to get the most out of your existing product teams? Visit crema.us today and learn how Crema's new services can help you navigate your biggest challenges. Now back to the show. So I want to shift gears one last time because we talked about the big three. Tell me more about this shift to Autodesk's project management solution. Why Autodesk? Why now? Why move away from the things that you've been using before? What's that look like?
So the internal need was a faster way to consume drawings. We had a solution in place that was good, but it wasn't intuitive enough for new users that were coming on board. And we were, the past few years, we've been hiring so many new users that we needed to really rethink the user experience of those applications. You have to be able to intuitively hand somebody an application and for them to understand how to use it. And so, if you are having to create multiple training documents on training documents just to use one small process, then it's not an efficient application. Yeah. So we looked at a couple of products. We did an evaluation internally of products. We did user times. So how long did it take a user to enter a certain issue? How long did it take a user to do daily journals, stuff like that? And it really came down to the ecosystem that was already internal with Autodesk. And it was a seamless change from pre-construction to design to construction. And so that was the focus. And they have a product called Build, which is their construction focused application. It handles drawings, RFIs, issues, submittals, all of the standard stuff, but it's built off of a common platform that all of their other products are built off of. So when we're using design coordination or we're using docs or we're using takeoff or any of those other products, they all kind of the underlying data set and the underlying platform is the exact same. So clash management is something that we talk about a lot. Clash management is where in design, if you have two objects that are done by two different verticals, so you might have an HVAC and plumbing, and if you have a plumbing pipe going through ductwork, well, it's a clash. It's a clash detection. Typically, that clash detection is noticed when the HVAC guy goes out there and he goes to lay his ductwork and he sees a pipe running right through where he was supposed to put a ductwork. Well, all of that happens now digitally. It all happens before. And this is clash management's been around for forever. And so that all happens during design. And so you have less changes during construction. When you create a clash management item, it's actually just an issue that lives in this build application. And so the more we started investigating build, we were already using pieces of it. We were already using the fundamental, the platform itself. And so it just made sense to go with build. The biggest challenge we had with build was the integration of the data objects in the Autodesk platform with our internal ERP. And so we used Fabric to build out a data integration platform. So we use Fabric to connect to Autodesk. It pulls down the data. Once we get the data into our data lake, we use the medallion method. And when we get the data over into the gold layer, that's when we say, okay, this one RFI needs to go back into our ERP. So we can then create a change record for cost. So we don't store any cost in Autodesk, but we do all of our essentially project management processes happen in Autodesk. But when cost gets created, that happens down in our ERP because we want all cost in one location. So the integration was by far the hardest thing, but it was the decision to go to Autodesk was almost a no-brainer once we really started investigating the entire platform that Autodesk has.
Yeah, and Autodesk, I mean, the industry as a whole, it's kind of like Autodesk or Procore, right? Like these are these two
Yeah.
behemoths in the industry that just kind of seem to be trying to check all the right boxes as quickly as possible and at the right price. I think that's always a big piece too, because you're dealing with thousands of employees or hundreds of projects, and that's the price gets that's something you have to manage as you're getting to that level, because it just gets out of control really fast. So each of these things are great. You're looking at low code, no code solutions. You're using CoPilot through Microsoft, and Microsoft is working with you. You're now working with Autodesk. But each of these things can balloon pretty quickly as you start looking at both the cost benefit analysis as well as the innovation of how quickly you can move to make sure you're executing your projects safely and securely and ethically, and everything else. It is a concert to make sure that all these things are in play in the right way, which I think is something that I hope that our listeners take away from this conversation is that I love that you're thinking about an ecosystem, right? This isn't one just like go do one thing, right? This
Hmm.
is, you need to be thinking about how these things pull, play, integrate, talk to each other, and then ultimately how it gets down to the end user. So I want to shift gears one last as we kind of land the plane real quick here. Where are there areas that either your end users or maybe even other people that you've talked to in the industry or at a conference or something else, that you've seen them go, hey, we're trying to do the same thing, or we're trying to take advantage of this technology, but they're just missing the mark. They're just looking at it slightly wrong. Where's an area that just like it gets under your skin that they're not doing it maybe as well as you think they ought to, or maybe even that you're not doing it as well as you ought to. But where's that thing where you think it's not going as well as it should?
So we've had a lot of companies ask us, how can we roll out features and or applications so fast to the enterprise? And this, I don't know if we were lucky or good, but this started about 12 years ago when technically 18 years ago, when I first started at Dunn, we had acquired multiple companies. So there was multiple entities that had to get brought into a single entity. And when we did that, we were very mindful of creating clean data. So we have a single repository of projects. We have a single repository of business partners that are cleaned and managed by two individuals. Our projects have to be created in a very specific manner, and it goes through a very specific workflow. And so because of that, we have very, very clean data, which allows us to iterate things extremely fast. And so when we go to conferences, we present on things. We've rolled out Autodesk Build, and we launched it on 20 projects the first month, but by the end of the year, we're up to 600 projects. Is because we're able to keep our data so clean that we're able to roll out things pretty programmatically, that allows us to move really, really fast. And that all started with a clean data set and a clean foundation at the beginning. And that really is one of the cornerstones of why we're able to do what we do, is because we built this application. And funny or not, we called it TPS because we wanted an application to have a TPS cover report. And when we when we created the name and we said, hey, what do you guys think of this? The one guy in the room that was, the guy that was going to agree on it had never seen Office Space.
Oh no.
And so he was like, kind of rolls off the tongue. I like it. And then we all went out to lunch, and we all were like, we had agreed on TPS, and TPS, it's meant to be the one-stop place for creating a project, managing contacts on the project, marketing information on that project, the closeout information on that project. It is a one-stop shop. And so came back from lunch and we showed him the video. And at that point, we kind of leaned into it, and we were like, you know what, let's go with it. Let's make it a joke. And it really has become one of the cornerstone applications in our company. And it's still running today, and it gets little minor tweaks. Every couple of weeks we adjust one little thing. So it keeps evolving, it keeps improving. But that application really allows us to do large scale things very quickly.
I love that. And I know Dan and I would basically be doing movie quotes all the time from that. So that's fantastic. Okay. So one other question, because I know people, especially our audience, is going to ask, what does your team structure look up? We'll land on this because this is something I think that's important because it's unique that talking about a more very traditional 100-year-old company, right, that has a very sophisticated clean data approach, very thoughtful integration approach, picking the right tools. What does your team look like, both from a leadership perspective and also from a practitioner perspective? Who does it take to make this work? Because this is a unique, and I think you all have done it so well. But what does a team look like that's actually bringing these things to
Well,
life?
first of all, the average tenure of a J Dunn IT employee is like 8.25 years, which is that's a testament to the company itself. Um, we have the very traditional silos. You have support, we have a support leadership, and then a support group. We have infrastructure, security, development, and EA. And so EA is the newest group, and it's a group that's sole job is to work on connecting the dots and making sure that the development group and the data group and the infrastructure group and the security group are all supported through the life cycle of the projects. And so it's a pretty standard group. Our development team truly is about doing APIs, building out custom applications, doing integrations with our ERP. And the data team is, we have data engineers, we have a data analysts that are building out, Power BI reports for our end users. It's a pretty traditional structure. I think I think that what sets us apart is the people in our organization, how much they love the company and they love doing what they're doing. And we just want to make sure that everybody has the best job. So, and it goes down to not just the people in IT, but the operators. We want to make sure that their life is as frictionless as possible. And technology plays such a huge role. And a lot of times technology is the cause of friction. And so our group really, we just want to make sure that everything just works for everyone. And that business processes are as efficient as possible. And I think with that mindset, it empowers people to really kind of go that extra mile internally, and really just want to make the end users happy. So it's not about structure with us. It's more about the people. We care more about the culture and the people that we hire, than, oh yeah, you're in this vertical versus this vertical versus this vertical.
I've gotten the chance to just peek inside to your culture just a little bit, and it is uniquely great. And so I'm first off, thank you for continuing to move that forward because it's not hard to destroy a culture; it's hard to keep a culture. It's hard to grow
Very
a
true.
culture. So thanks for being intentional on keeping it going. So this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing so much. There's a lot that I think, especially on the enterprise side and on the construction side, the general contractor side, that other companies can beg, borrow, or steal
Yeah.
from what Dunn is doing. And in 100 years, man, I think that I've seen the posters all over Kansas City. I've seen the social media go out loud and proud. That's crazy. 100 years. I can only hope and imagine to be a part of something that has a legacy like that. So thank you for sharing with me today. I guess last thing here is to kind of roll out the red carpet for you. Where can people learn more about you, what you're thinking about, as you're sharing your story, your expertise, or what
Obviously, jdunn.com. We try to be pretty active on jdunn.com. We have a lot of leadership posts throughout operations. Even IT has content out there that really kind of defines our strategy. So jdunn.com is by far the best place. And then obviously LinkedIn. Our leadership group is very active within LinkedIn, sharing strategies, articles, content. And so those are definitely the two places to learn more about us. We do speak at,
and I'm
yeah,
constantly learning from it. Yeah, it's
we
great.
typically will speak at a handful of events like Microsoft conferences, Autodesk conferences, stuff like that. But yeah, the J Dunn and LinkedIn are by far the best.
and then look for JE Dunn on
There
the
you
agenda
go.
of any conference you're going to. Awesome. Well, Mark, thanks again for joining me today. This is awesome, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you
It's
for
great to
having
talk
me.
to you.
People of Product is brought to you by Crema, a design consultancy that helps forward-thinking leaders discover, understand, and execute on their greatest opportunities. Learn more at crema.us.